roundtable on the circular economy rebound effect, which we have been organizing as part of the Circular Economy Research Club, which is transnational research network which aims at promoting and fostering circular economy research. Today we have a roundtable focused on the concept of the rebound effect and its relevance to the circular economy research agenda. And it is our pleasure to have here with us today two distinguished scholars in this area, two scholars that have been authoring several seminal publications concerned with rebound effects. In rigorous alphabetical order, I'll start introducing David von Vivanco, who is an environmental scientist and who got his MSc in industrial ecology by the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona and an MSc in renewable energy engineering and management at the University of Barcelona. Then David went on to study for his PhD from Leiden University in the Netherlands, where he started developing his first seminal contribution to rebound effects in industrial ecology. Since then, he has been a postdoc at prestigious institutions such as Yale in the US and University College London, working on the development of environmental economic models that combine life cycle assessment, input-output analysis, econometrics, and CGE models. He has also been awarded Marie Sklodowska-Curie Individual Fellowship, and after leaving academia, he is currently working as a life cycle sustainability manager at Eco-Intelligent Growth, which is a Barcelona-based consultancy firm helping clients from private companies to understand and lower their environmental and social their environmental impact. Then we have Trevor Zink, who is an associate professor of management and sustainability at Loyola Marymount University in the US, where he also earned his BBA and MBA, and he got his PhD from University of California, Santa Barbara. Trevor teaches graduate and undergraduate courses in business ethics and sustainability, and is a worldwide recognized expert in life cycle assessment methodologies and the circular economy. His research focus lies at the intersection of industrial ecology and economics, and his most significant work has been published with focus on the questioning of the environmental value of recycling and the circular economy. Trevor introduced first the rebound effect concept in the circular economy research agenda, and since then has authored a number of publications in this field. So we'll structure this roundtable as a Q&A that I'll be coordinating. Also, I want to thank Ben Lowe, our colleague Ben Lowe, for organizing this event. Unfortunately, Ben cannot be with us today due to some family emergency, but we really need to thank him for arranging such an event and bringing together this very distinguished panel of speakers. I would start with Trevor, asking him the first question, given his seminal papers authored in this area. Trevor, how would you define rebound effects in the context of the transition towards a circular economy for those who might not be familiar with this concept, and why this is such an important concept of which circular economy scholars need to be aware of?
Sure. Thanks, and yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. Excited for the discussion today. Yeah, so jumping right in, I guess from my perspective, when I talk about this, I think it's very easy to get to make the circular economy a little more complicated than it really is. I think there's particularly in various parts of the literature, there's a tendency to try to include kind of the kitchen sink, anything that sounds sustainable or green. Oh, it must be part of the circular economy. So we see people bringing in things like virtualization or servicization or things like that. But really, when we're talking about circularizing material flows, what we're talking about is just reuse at the level of products, components, or materials. We call those things reuse, refurbishing, and recycling. And when we understand the circular economy to be that, the idea or the hope is that reuse of these three levels is going to displace some primary production of products, of components, or of materials, which is then going to reduce environmental impacts by the difference between the avoided production impacts and the incurred reuse impact. So circular economy rebound just says that this reuse can have some knock-on effects, both through market interactions, behavioral changes, other effects that actually increase overall consumption, and that this increased consumption then reduces or eliminates the expected benefits that we would have from circular economy activity. It can even lead to backfire where this extra consumption makes things worse than so the net impacts are actually greater than the activity that the circular economy activity just replaced. So I guess that leads into the second part of the question, which is why this is important to study, because it's kind of until this the rebound work has sort of come up in the last half decade or so. It was always taken as kind of canon, as just an implied belief that circularity necessarily means benefit, and you can see that that's definitely the case in, for instance, the European Union and pushes to invest in circularizing economic flows, but things are only a benefit. And when I say things there, I mean, like I said, it goes beyond just the circular economy, right? Any sort of supposedly environmental activity is only beneficial if it reduces actual physical emissions in net, meaning total emissions are lower in a world with this activity relative to a comparative hypothetical world without the activity. So that means the circular economy in general is only worth pursuing if it reduces net emissions. And circular economy rebound means that simply or merely closing material or product or component loops is no guarantee that this supposed material is actually, or supposed benefit is actually going to materialize. And certainly it means that the size of the benefit, even if it does exist, is going to be smaller than we would expect it would be if we didn't consider rebound. So I guess in summary, it's an important thing, just like with energy efficiency rebound, which is where we drew the inspiration for the name. If you don't consider rebound and energy efficiency, you're going to vastly overestimate the size of the environmental benefit of some energy efficiency innovation, and the same is true with the circular economy. So we just need to be very careful that we are going into these things with eyes open.
Thank you, Trevor, for the very good and at the same time synthetic answer. David, would you like to add something to what Trevor said?
So first of all, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about this exciting topic. And I mean, I agree with what Trevor said. maybe if I can add something to it, I would say that for those who are unfamiliar with the concept of circular rebound, but are familiar with the concept of rebound. So if I had to explain why is this different or new, I would say that it's important to understand that circularity, it's a form of it can be interpreted as in terms of efficiency. So it's in a way, if you analyze any strategy within the circular economy framework, I mean, they all try to improve the efficiency one way or another. And that's why it's important to consider rebound, because the core idea of rebound, it has to do with unintended consequences of efficiency changes. And if you understand circular economy in that framework, then it becomes very critical to consider rebound, because it has to do with efficiency, and as a core idea behind the circular economy, I would say that the efficiency and rebound go hand in hand. So you need to include one with the other, and that's why it's so important, because it's just it's a critical point of view of the circular economy and any other strategy that involves efficiency.
Thank you, David. And Trevor, could you just give us a sort of snapshot of the current state of the research concerning circular economy rebound effects so far? What do you see as the most significant findings and insights in this area at the moment? But at the same time, where do you think are the main gaps?
Yeah, happy to answer from my perspective on that. I think David might actually have a closer view on that, given the review articles that he's authored. But I think probably one of the, I guess, starting at the simplest level, the most important things that have happened so far is that it exists. That circular economy rebound is actually real. It's been interesting to see some work come out that attempts to quantify or verify that, conceptually or empirically, that rebound actually takes place. I don't know that is taken necessarily for granted yet, though. So you talked about maybe some controversies or unsolved areas. I think certainly in the realm of industrial ecology, I still end up having arguments either at conferences or from the infamous reviewer number 2 on papers that that kind of just say, well, no, if you're recycling something, if you're circularizing something, it's just it necessarily displaces some other activity. There's no other. What else could happen? Because we have conservation of mass, and as soon as you say conservation of mass, then if we have more of one thing, we have to have less of another thing, which it just kind of speaks to the fragmentation in this broad field across disciplinary lines, right? That if you've been trained in certain disciplines, it's sometimes hard to imagine worlds through a different lens. But certainly, I think there's lots of I don't know if so much debate, but just unanswered questions about how much circular economy rebound there is by material, by use case, by geography and market. I think there are unanswered questions about the primary causes, whether they are primarily market effects, so price effects and that kind of thing, or psychological effects. I think is fairly understudied, how it just changes, how the circularity just changes people's beliefs and therefore their behaviors, their beliefs about themselves, and how environmental they are. There's unanswered questions about what sort of government intervention might be used to reduce rebound. Questions about technical substitutability. What types of things what types of activities get displaced in the circular economy. And then there's, at least in the field of LCA, we've been going 20 years now on a debate about how to allocate the benefits, for instance, of recycling at end of life, whether the benefits of recycling should be allocated to the producer of scrap or to the user of scrap or some combination. And we can't even figure that out in LCA. So we're miles away from then being able to allocate some reduction of those benefits because of rebound. So plenty to do out there, that's for sure.
Thank you, Trevor. David, any view?
Yeah, so if I have to complement what Trevor said, I would like to say that circular rebound, it's a very young field of research. I mean, I don't think it has more than 10 years. I think less, because the first paper was in
2017, I think.
Yeah, 17. So it doesn't even have 10 years, so it's quite immature. Still, the concept has grabbed the attention clearly, because you can see papers and reviews and so on. I would say that there's two types of contributions. One is more theoretical, and I'm not fully convinced that these theoretical contributions are all of them new. I mean, I feel there's a lot of, reusing concepts and labeling a bit different, but I do think the focus on especially imperfect substitution is very interesting. It's nothing new, but definitely we need to put more emphasis on that. And I think that the circular rebound literature focuses quite a lot on substitutability and critical issues that arise when you are dealing with recycling, etc. So from the theoretical perspective, I'm not 100% sure that the contribution has been, outstanding, but I do see a lot of empirical research and a lot of interesting papers that focus on specific circular strategies like sharing economy, etc. And I do think there's value in this research, because they have highlighted hidden knowledge that we just assumed things like the sharing economy was universally positive and something to promote. And this research shows that, of course, there's it's not black or white. It depends on the details. And I think that the empirical research is what I would highlight the most about circular rebound research. And to finish, I think there's two gaps in the literature, or at least two, the ones I think are more important. The first one is that we are not great at collecting micro data. I think we have still a lot to learn from, social science and behavioral economics, etc. Because I see a lot of assumptions, and we lose a lot of detail about the users and the specific agents. And the second gap is that I still see a tunnel vision on things like carbon footprint, and mostly carbon footprint. And sometimes we forget that the rebound can be expressed in many different indicators and many different dimensions. That can be environmental dimension, but also the social dimension. And I often see that the social dimension, it's kind of forgotten because of this tunnel vision. and I'm sure that in the future we will see an evolution of the field in these two directions, filling these two gaps. I mean, I myself, I will contribute in the coming years in the context of a couple of projects, but I'm pretty sure that's two ways that the field will evolve.
Thank you, David. Then turning to policy and market dynamics. I mean, I remember one of the things I liked the most of Trevor's seminal paper was this conceptualization of the circular economy as a system of markets rather than technical and engineering system. That was the way in which it had been portrayed till then. Of course, I mean, we have been discussing about the need to acknowledge rebound effects, the need to quantify, to understand better the magnitude of the phenomenon. But are we also saying that at least within a market economy, rebound effects are in a way inevitable? What do you think, Trevor? And then, of course, David.
Getting first crack at all these, huh? Okay. Yeah, I guess, I mean, I'm now in the weird place of teaching in a business school, but at least as of 3 years ago, being on record as being a anti-market, anti-capitalist type of person from my latest paper called "The Circular Economy and Market Systems." I've come sort of over the time studying this to the conclusion that there basically is no fixing rebound within a market system. Kind of for the reason that David pointed out is rebound. Circular economy is a form of efficiency. Markets tend towards efficiency. It's the thing that they're good at doing. Now, we do have to point out that markets tend towards a certain type of efficiency. Right? Markets tend towards market efficiency, as we distinguished in our latest paper, which is distinct from say technical efficiency. Right? If you want to design the best spacecraft, you're going to think about technical efficiency. If you want to design the most profitable spacecraft, you're going to think about a different form of efficiency. And markets emphasize market efficiency and kind of preclude a lot of purely technical efficiency. So I think as long as you're talking about market systems, and as long as you're talking about sort of, you mentioned policy and government intervention, as long as you're talking about policy changes within a market system, you're basically now talking about things like subsidies and taxes and other price-based interventions. I don't see, from a conceptual and theoretical standpoint, I don't see how any market-based system can lead to anything but a rebound, because as if people are free to adjust their consumption of products, at a market level, if actors are free to respond to changes in price, well, making things more efficient is always going to lower the price of them, and lowering prices is always going to lead to increased consumption in a market economy. Now we can have interesting conversations about, like, okay, well, what if we just command and control sort of decided to limit primary production, or we said, thou shalt not consume more even if prices go down. Cool. Those sorts of interventions will probably have a positive impact. They'll probably reduce rebound, but it's hard for me to square how those kinds of interventions are still within something that we might reasonably call a market economy. Those sorts of interventions start to look a lot more like a centrally planned economy where we distribute resources based on some technical or social goals, rather than allowing free market competition to decide how to allocate scarce resources. So that's kind of where I've landed on this, is that I don't see a way forward. I think the circular economy there's nothing wrong with the concept, but when you constrain it within a system that demands profitability, that demands growth of the economy, there's kind of no other way but rebound. Maybe that's too depressing for this early in the conversation. I don't know.
Thank you. David, so yeah, Trevor has clearly stated the inevitability of rebound effects. Do you agree with this? And I would also add slightly different spin to the question: are all rebounds bad?
Yeah, I think, I mean, one of the great things of being the second is I can say just Trevor is right, and okay. But so, I mean, to add to this great introduction, I want to put on the table that maybe we are asking the wrong question, because I've been studying rebound for a while, and at the beginning I was, really focused on how do we reduce it, how do we mitigate it, and I have a full paper on what are the policy options to do it, and dealing with market mechanisms and command and control and so on. And then at some point I realized that rebounds are inevitable because they go hand in hand with efficiency. And I don't want to get too philosophical, but efficiency is why species thrive. Like that's one of the main reasons we are here, because we manage to be efficient. So efficiency, it's just, I think it's part of us. So personally, I don't think there's value in trying to change our own nature, or whatever you want to call it. But I would rather focus on the ultimate goal as a society, which can be different, but I think it should be something related to welfare and having a good and decent life and so on. And in that sense, I think there is a way to use rebound in your favor. And I'm just gonna say a very easy example, because there's research that analyzed the behavior of people when you improve the insulation of their houses. So when you improve the insulation, that's of course you're improving the efficiency, because they don't need to warm so much the house. So they observed that for those that had less income, they basically used these spoils from efficiency, these benefits. They used them to warm the house to an acceptable level, right? However, those who already had a good temperature, which was around 20 degrees Celsius, they didn't need to spend so much on the house, so they spend it on something else. So in both cases, you can observe rebound. In both cases, you increase carbon emissions. However, in the case of the low-income group, you are helping them overcome energy poverty and achieve a decent standard of life. And in the other case, yeah, it's just a byproduct that doesn't really give much value to society. So maybe we need to, from policy or from other areas. We need to kind of balance and promote the good rebound and de-incentivize the bad rebound. And I think with this perspective, which is, I think it's more aligned with what people can understand, and just it's more aligned with what we want as a society. So I really think we should start asking ourselves, how can we use Rebound as a tool to achieve our goals as a society?
Thank you, David.
Yeah, can I
Trevor, please.
Continue on that thread a little bit, because I think it's an interesting point, and what you're highlighting, that there are basically different types of rebound. There's sort of first order rebound, which is I'm just going to use the savings to do more of the activity, and maybe we even call that something less than first order rebound, because you're pointing out that there's an unacceptable level of service that we're now just raising to a societally acceptable level of service. And I think there's something to that. Maybe there's rebound effects that help fix food insecurity globally, or energy insecurity, and that's a good point. I don't think, I'm hesitant in the conclusion that the other types of rebound are necessarily not providing value to society, or even that we can make an environmental claim so easily about those. I think you're right that we can make sort of a social welfare claim, as we're talking about particularly the world's poorest people, and raising standards of living to an acceptable, decent level of a decent life. But say for instance, the second order rebound of these are the people who have already they've already got their house to the right temperature, and then now they get to spend their heating savings on something else. I can't say whether that's better or worse environmentally until I know what they spend it on, right? If they take an extra €100 a month and spend it on they've just increased their meat consumption now, or they spend it on nice steak dinners or something, that might actually have a larger carbon footprint than heating the house. If they spend it on a haircut and a massage, that's basically impact free, and so services in general, right? It's going to be, there's no material throughput there, so as close to impact free consumption as one can get, I think. I think this is another area where we can easily fall victim to the original problem of Rebound, which is just assuming that making assumptions about whether things are environmentally better or worse. I think it's an unanswered, as far as I'm aware, unanswered question in a general or specific sense. How do people spend their extra income from efficiency?
If I just can I make a quick answer?
Please.
I think you are right in saying that. There's a lot of unknowns, but the good thing is that we have the tools to actually calculate the numbers, and I'm sure there's a way to calculate the marginal benefits of Rebound according to different groups,
income groups,
or whatever. So we do have the tools we just have to make the calculations. But I think if we are clear about what's the ultimate goal, which is to maximize returns to society, I do think Rebound can be a tool to overcome social issues across the planet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I go back to, that starts to sound an awful lot like a centrally planned economy, which I'm for, right? And it starts to sound less like let's let markets decide where to allocate resources.
Okay, fair point.
Thank you to both for this very interesting exchange. And David, I would like you to start with this one. I mean, looking also at your research experience and the papers you have published, sort of methods that you've been using, what can we learn from other disciplines? What sort of contributions could be looking at in order to improve the understanding of this phenomenon and linking to what you were saying? I mean, better quantification, better understanding, better prediction also, and ultimately also probably, as Trevor was saying, better planning.
Yeah, it's a complex question. I'll try to be brief, but in my experience, I always have tried to look at Rebound with the lenses of sustainability. Like I have this mindset of always looking at sustainability and also the life cycle of using a life cycle thinking. And when you look at Rebound through these lenses, it's a bit like dealing with sustainability as a concept. Sustainability deals with so many, you need so many pieces of knowledge to actually perform a good sustainability assessment. Okay, something is not more sustainable because it's circular or because it has a lower carbon footprint. It's more complex than that. So when you're modeling Rebound, you have that same problem. And I don't know if someone in the audience has studied environmental sciences or some sort of sustainability science, but myself, when I studied environmental sciences, I had to, take classes on chemistry, sociology, law, economics. So basically, I just took a bit of everything because, problems, you need to understand the complexity of problems. So with Rebound, it's a bit the same. You start maybe from your own field. In my case, it was LCA. And then I started to see that I needed different tools from different fields. I went into microeconomics, macroeconomics, then behavioral economics. Of course, you have to understand the science behind the whole thing. So there's really no field of knowledge that you don't use when studying Rebound. Like, you really need to integrate not just knowledge but actual tools, because it's a complex phenomena, and of course you have to put limits at some point because you will integrate knowledge and tools. But definitely, I mean, if I have to give a piece of advice, it would be to just keep your mind open. Don't be afraid to deal and read papers about, experiments on from sociology, because definitely it's knowledge that you will end up needing to understand the problem.
Thank you, David. Trevor, your perspective on these?
Yeah, you're right. It's nice going second. I can just say, yeah, that's all right. No, Sam, I came out of an MBA and went into my PhD, and I was very excited to get into sustainability science, and I showed up to my PhD, and Roland, my advisor, first day, he says, all right, you need to go become an economist. And I was like, no, Roland, no, I came here to do sustainability. I want to do environmental stuff. I don't want to do economics. And he said, nope, sorry. The questions in the field, they require a perspective outside of this field in order to answer. You need to go become an economist if you want to have to have a contribution here. So I said, okay, fine. And I went and took every economics class that UC Santa Barbara had to offer. And then a few years later, it's like, I actually don't consider myself to be a very good economist. I think I'm a passable economist, but like being able to take some basic insights from studying economics and apply them to the field of industrial ecology, now all of a sudden you have new knowledge, right? And I know we've got some PhD students in the room. I think there's two approaches to getting a PhD. One is to get very, very, very deep in a established discipline. Another one, which is slightly more risky but can pay off, is to try to combine different disciplines and have insights that are transdisciplinary and integrative. I would just maybe this is saying the same thing in a different way, but I would just suggest that true insight is often going to come from doing something else other than what you're trying to have an insight into. The famous story of Archimedes and displacement, right? And he's famously in the bath when he figures out water displacement and mass and the relationship. And he's in the paintings, he's always drawn with the crown sort of in the bath. And it's like, no, why would he have brought the crown to the bath? That's not how it happened. He just went to the baths to have a bath. And while he was in the bath, he was, his brain was working on this, and he's like, oh, I figured it out. Doing other things, you're working on one project or one question, studying things in other places, and letting your mind sort of take insights from those fields and apply it back to the question at hand, I think, for me at least, has had a lot of value.
Thank you, Trevor. And David, going back to you, I mean, just a final question, and then we can open the floor to the debate. I'm just conscious of time. We've already spent 45 minutes. So what sort of research do you like to see emerging in the next few years? I think, we have got a lot of PhD students here in the virtual room, or early career researchers. Any sort of thing that would be nice and worth for our younger colleagues to concentrate on? So first David and then Trevor.
Okay. So I will connect to one of my previous points, which was to look at the social dimension of Rebound. I think that still needs much research to do. We need to understand, we have a good understanding of the environmental dimension of Rebound. We can use tools to calculate it. But the social dimension, we just probably typically stop at theoretical insights. We don't have good tools to measure this social impact. And I think that it's critical to do that, because, I mean, we've been talking about Rebound for, we can go back to the Jevons paradox. But Rebound was born in the 80s, around the 80s. So it's been more than 40 years. It's been a lot of time, and we are still discussing Rebound in an academic context. And that's a tragedy, because it's such an important topic that should be discussed in policy, in the street. My mom should be talking about Rebound. It's such a critical aspect to understand how our society works. And I have a theory. It's not proven, but I have the theory that we have not been selling it very well, because we have been just calculating carbon footprint from Rebound and so on, and it's always negative. We always focus on the bad stuff, and that's not very sexy. People have enough problems, politicians, but also the private sector, the finance sector. So if I would, start a PhD tomorrow and have any topic I want, I would probably have this question of how do we sell Rebound? How do we make people care about it? How do we make them feel it's important, it affects their business or it affects society? And I would spend 4 years trying to answer that question. I know it's a tricky question, but I don't know. I think it's I don't have an answer. Like I don't know how to sell it. I don't know why people don't care about it too much, and I would love for someone to tell me more about this.
Thanks, Trevor.
That's interesting perspective. How do we get my mom to talk about Rebound? I think also, aside from sort of like the unsexy, boring, but important research of like just more specific estimates of Rebound, like I think it's easy to move too quickly past that and be like, well, we know how to do this now, and so it doesn't make for a very good PhD because there's no like methodological advancement here. But like still, if we want LCA practitioners, for instance, to be including Rebound in calculations of LCA results, we need to be providing practitioners with robust estimates of Rebound for different materials, for different use cases, for different geographies. Like those just, as far as I'm aware, those just aren't out there for very many things. It's particularly even just in the simple cases of imperfect displacement, imperfect substitution. Like if you have end of life plastics in your life cycle assessment, how much benefit from recycling? I don't know. We have to reduce it, but by how much? Like there's still a lot of empirical contributions to be made of just quantifying Rebound, even if it is a little mechanistic and unsexy. Although I think there's probably methodological answers or questions there too. The big difficulty in these quantifications is data availability and then the data analysis. And I think with AI, there's new tools, there's new data sets that might be interesting in this. The other thing though that I would submit we really need to spend more time on is this broader societal question of what we're aiming for. And Rebound, of course, plays a part in that. But if we accept, for instance, that Rebound is sort of part and parcel with efficiency and therefore with market economies, and we understand that there might be some beneficial aspects to Rebound, as David was saying, there's still also a lot of just impact increasing aspects of Rebound. Basically, if we accept that we can't have an endlessly growing consumption, we need to figure out what the alternative is. And I think degrowth or steady state economic research is still like a fringe field. I think there's like 15 or 20 people doing research on degrowth. And we're all kind of just running around saying the same thing. I think we need some fresh perspectives on what a future economy, what the future socioeconomic system might look like. We recognize that like technical solutions within a growth-based paradigm are just going to lead to more growth. And we need to address the root cause, which is that growth-based market economics. We need some fresh voices saying, here's what a society, a thriving and truly sustainable society might look like. And that's a risk. It's a risk to take on that kind of project, but I think it's the kind of big picture thinking that I'd like to see more of.
Thank you, Trevor. Very good suggestions from both of you. And I would like to open the floor for questions. I have a very good audience, so please, I would like to break the ice. Tommaso had a question. He told me before the meeting started, but let's go with Pierluigi first. Pierluigi, over to you.
Okay, great, Andrea. Thank you for handing the floor to me, and it's a pleasure to hear both Trevor and David. And I have a very general question. I'm a management engineer, so I mostly deal with companies, production plants, and dust, and money, and boring stuff. Anyway, the circular economy is an economy, so it implies to the demand that meets the offer in general. And so my question is, what could be a take-home message for companies about Rebound? Because most times I deal with companies and I try to exchange some ideas about Rebound effects. And most times the first reaction is, why are you blaming us for something? For trying to bring our business forward. Now, I'm not trying to blame anyone. I'm not in the position to do that. But I think that so far we have discussed Rebound in terms of social dimension and on the environmental one, but it is caused by economic activities, and it is a phenomenon that occurs into an economy.
Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah, I don't I don't know. I've tried in various papers to come up with some suggestions of like, well, you try to limit rebound by, but like, again, if your goal is profit maximization, to the point where McKinsey and Company, the consulting firm, they've talked about Rebound in a white paper that they put out, and what they have to say is, make sure that if you're have some circular economic activities, make sure they're not cutting into your other core businesses. Like, do those things in addition to your core business, not instead of. So they're very explicit about saying, like, look, if you want the circular economy to be profitable for you, like, maximize Rebound is what they're essentially saying, right? Do the core business and do the circular economy stuff. Don't do any displacement. And I think, if a leading management consultant firm is saying that, I'm inclined to believe them that that's the best way to make money off of this, but that also makes it the worst environmental outcome. So I don't quite know.
So if I may add, I deal with companies every day, and one of the topics I sometimes speak with them, it's Rebound, okay? And the answer, well, typically the first question is, what is it, right? Like, what are you talking? And the second is, why should I care? Like, clearly, it's not a compliance issue. No one is going to require you to look into it. But to me, the answer links to my previous points. I mean, a company in the end has generally a profit-seeking behavior, but it also has personality in a way. There's companies who, for whatever reason, they want to do, they want to generate a positive impact, whatever that means. So I think that's one of the points I would deal with my, fictional PhD, trying to make companies understand that they can make a positive impact through Rebound. They just need to first measure it and understand it, and then make decisions based on that. What kind of business models do they want to prioritize? What kind of products? What procurement policies? Like all of that. If you give them the information and they have a good understanding of what are the consequences, and they can generate a positive social impact, for example, I think that could be a way they would care. That's again, it's a theory, but I think from my experience, that could be a way to make them interested in the topic.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Tommaso, do you want to go next?
Yes. So you have mentioned the possibility that tomorrow, in a post-growth economy with post-growth policies, there could be the conditions for to stop or to limit the rebound effects associated with the circular economy practices. And so just to visualize it, I wanted to ask you, for example, to take the example of the tin production that I think Trevor uses in his paper, and explain how with post-growth policies, single economic actors that deal with recycling tin could behave in a way that rebound effect is prevented.
Thank you. I think Tommaso is referring to the example you gave in your presentation, Trevor, in a seminar you delivered to our group a few years ago. So every time we recycle tin, this is not automatically translated into reduction of the materials that are needed for aluminum production that are extracted. I think you can tackle this question first, then.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about some different economic system, I think that was inherent in your question, right? Is not our current system, but some fictional better one. Look, rebound, at least in this sense that we're talking about, the imperfect substitution aspect of rebound, it takes place because the influx of supply of recycled aluminum or tin lowers the price of aluminum as a material on the market. And if that is allowed to happen, and then if that decrease in price, if people are free to act on that, well, they're going to increase their consumption of it, right? We'll find new uses for aluminum. People will, make aluminum, use aluminum to make things that they were previously using some other material, or we'll just make more stuff because everything's cheaper. So I think in a post-growth world, what happens is we basically cut off that decision-making ability. We basically say, like, yeah, even though things are more efficient, that doesn't translate into lower prices, because we're no longer using markets as a mediating system. And if it no longer translates into lower prices, then it doesn't turn into increased consumption. So then we might get closer to a world where every time you recycle some aluminum, you actually are reducing the amount of bauxite coming out of a mine somewhere in South America, right? Like those if it's a technical system, if we turn it back into a technical system through some intentional planning rather than a market system, then you can just say, well, this is how much aluminum we need to do to meet the following societal demands, and we're going to choose to get it from scrap rather than from bauxite. I was about to say it's pretty easy to avoid rebound then, but of course, in talking about a very difficult and different system than we have. But I think that's my take is, if you're talking about a post-growth economy, then you have necessarily invoked some different method of making decisions that's not market mediated. And so you can avoid those price effects.
David.
I mean, I don't have much to add, honestly, because I don't know the exact example, and I don't want to just talk because I am supposed to. So I just take Trevor's word as a good answer. So I will just
Thank you. Ram.
Thanks, Andrea. Thank you so much, Trevor and David. I enjoyed the talk as much as I enjoyed reading your papers. So I just want to extend the discussion on that imperfect substitution. So I was just thinking on the point of who are the right consumers for the concept of rebound. So can we actually look at rebound as a phenomenon to drive product development? Is it like what kind of products should be incentivized to be developed such that it could minimize rebound? And if so, in that kind of policies could actually be used to kind of command and control this kind of products and that. I just wanted your opinion on that particular aspect.
David, you can go first if you want.
Okay. Yeah, I can say something about that. So, I mean, what I do on a daily basis, it's mostly LCA. So I do LCAs for companies, LCAs of products as well. And when you look at the LCA of a product, you look by definition at the whole life cycle of the product, how it's used, what happens when it becomes waste, etc. So when you integrate Rebound in that LCA, you have power as a designer to control what's going to happen with the product, because there's a lot of examples of products that by design they generate, let's say, detrimental behaviors, products that are misused because of their design, and not necessarily, but sometimes it has to do with Rebound. So I would say that definitely that the product designer, if you take that approach of doing an LCA and integrating Rebound, you can definitely tackle it through design. Yeah, absolutely.
Trevor.
Yeah, David just made me think, one of the big areas that sort of spurred Roland and I to look into aluminum specifically for Rebound was that, in the automotive industry, a lot of companies were sort of deciding to go either aluminum automobile frames or high strength steel. And the environmental choice entirely rests on the understanding of Rebound, right? If you don't believe in Rebound, then aluminum looks a lot better. If you do believe in Rebound, then high strength steel looks better. So to David's point, if you're consulting with a company and they're making this kind of decision, your understanding of Rebound and how you choose to communicate that in the methodology or in the findings or in the recommendations can absolutely have like significant real life implications for the environmental impacts of products. I guess I hadn't thought about it from like a design, like a prospective LCA perspective, but thinking if you're doing trying to decide two different ways of designing a product and you're including Rebound, that can definitely lead to different recommendations. So, yeah.
So that made me think. So I just looked in my archive, and there's research that shows that the type of degree of information you allow the user to have on the use of the product has deep implications on behavior and on Rebound. So that's probably one of the most clear cases of how a product designer can, try to nudge people to behave differently through the amount of information that the user receives. And there are studies from smart meters, for example, that show that that information plays a role in Rebound and in the overall performance of the product. And I'm sure we could think of more examples, but that's a good one.
Thank you very much, both, for these insightful answers. Any other question? I think we still have time for final one. If there is some volunteer here. Renato, would you like to ask question? I saw you had raised your hand earlier. Oh, okay. Sorry, you are in Donald Duck mode. We can't hear you properly. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. In case I'll just ask, a question myself, and this is mainly for Trevor, given what he was talking about earlier. Asking you, Trevor, if you think there is any sort of potential in the use of systems, technology that nowadays are mainly used by large multinational corporations like Amazon, Walmart, which essentially we could say, are sort of centrally planned economies, the way they function, given the magnitude of their supply chains and the level of detail they need to achieve in order to coordinate the flows of materials that feed their supply chains. Do you think there could be some potential moving towards a post-growth world, having this sort of technologies being utilized for the public good, and also probably mitigating rebound effects, in the sense that through these technologies we could solve many of the information and coordination problems that in the end cause rebound effects? Because having a sort of Amazon product allocation algorithm which looks at the matching of aluminum recycling and bauxite extraction could help us solving the problem. What do you think?
Oh yeah, no doubt. And if there's any, I'm, as you guys can tell, I'm a fairly depressing person to talk to you about this subject. But if I'm very positive on anything, I think this is not a technical problem. I think we have the technical solutions to implement a functional circular economy, easily, right? The companies you talk about, if we were to direct the intellectual capital that Amazon and Google and Apple and Tata Steel and if we were to direct all of this raw talent and data and analysis capabilities in the direction of, let's create a sustainable world where everyone has a good and decent life, as David was talking about, they could do it. I'm confident that we have the ability to direct the resources, energy, products, waste flows in a completely efficient or good enough technically efficient manner. The problem is all of that raw talent is currently being aimed at maximizing not welfare but profit, and that's a very different goal. I made the point in one of my recent papers that despite knowing more about space travel, having more efficient rocketry, having much more computing power, no private company has gone to the moon. And I'm here in LA next to the SpaceX factory. And I'm like, I've talked to some of these guys, like they could absolutely send a person to the moon next week if they wanted to, but they don't want to because there's no profit in going to the moon, right? They want to send satellites up instead, or take astronauts to the International Space Station because NASA pays them to. If we were to redirect all that raw talent in the direction of societal benefit, no problem. We just need to decide that we value human welfare over corporate profitability.
Thank you very much, Trevor. David, would you like to add something, even a contrasting perspective? Yes. What do you think about, the problem from a technical point of view? I mean, do you agree with Trevor that
I mean, it's not
we have the technical means?
I mean, we could have stopped developing technology years ago, and we would be fine. I mean, it's not the problem. If I have to be positive, I would say that modern capitalism, it's just a phase. It's like being a teenager. Like you will grow up, and then we will build something different. And I hope that the next big economic system will have welfare in mind. That's I don't know. That's a way to be positive. I mean, I think that companies will always seek profits. I mean, that's to me that's a given, and that's fine. It generates incentives to innovate and to generate wealth. The problem is, how do we distribute it, and how much it's enough? I mean, a lot of companies do not fully maximize their profits because, what I was saying, they have other objectives. And I think that and I truly believe this. I mean, if they truly understood the rebound, like the concept, and if they truly understood what they can do just by understanding rebound and trying to make decisions based on that, I think that would give a little push to a different, marginally better system. I don't know. It's again just a theory.
Thank you very much, David, for these further insights. And we have time for a very final question, if there is one. Otherwise, we can also stop here. So let's wait.
Andreas.
Oh, Renato, yeah, you are back.
I hope that the Donald Duck effect has
Please go on.
overcome. Thank you. So first of all, thank you our guests for their clear speeches and roundtable. So I have I have two questions. One is more theory oriented, and one is more practical, practice oriented. Probably is more a provocation. So first of all, based on what we said in the debate, what do they think about interpreting the rebound effect as a sort of failure of the circular economy solution that are proposed in the current market economy system? And the second one is connected, of course, to the first one. So if we think at the rebound effect as a technical failure of a circular economy solution that are proposed currently, is it possible, according to you, imagine that in near future we can see a technology, let's say artificial intelligence technology, let's say sustainable artificial intelligence technology as a tool to avoid impacting the problems and the consequences of the rebound effect?
Okay, Renato, I think slightly probably missed my question while you were not connected, because my question was quite similar to yours regarding technical solutions. Yeah. So probably let's go with the first one. So rebound effects as a failure of circular economy. David, and then Trevor.
I personally wouldn't say it's a failure. It's just, again, if your strategy is based on efficiency, then you will have rebound. So it's you can call it a byproduct or something inevitable. Of course, sometimes it backfires, and we want to avoid that. I think that it's quite frustrating to put a lot of efforts into designing new products and new business models, and then do the calculations, and then you end up worse than you started. I think that's a failure. I would say that's definitely a failure, but I wouldn't say the concept itself it's a failure. I think it's more the context and the magnitude and the implications that can be seen as a failure, and that's why we have to understand it to avoid these specific cases where it's a net loss for society.
Yeah, I agree. Also, turning back to advice for PhD students in the room, my opinion on this was totally changed by Thomas Siderius, who I ended up co-authoring my latest paper with, because I had actually reviewed a paper that he had submitted for a journal, and where he was making this case relatedly that circular economy was actually a very valid concept, and this is coming off of all of my rebound work. And so after the paper was published, I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, we should have a conversation about this." And so we just met up on Zoom and argued for an hour and a half. And then by the end of the conversation, we were like, "Oh, we need to write a paper on our argument here." And where I landed on that was, no, the circular economy is not, even rebound is not a technical failure of circular economy. It's an inevitable outcome, as David says, when you put the circular economy into a system that demands market efficiency. Going back to the space travel analogy, if you imagine Kennedy in the 60s had not said, we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade, but instead he had said, NASA, we need you to put a man on the moon, and you need to make money doing it. Right? And you need to be profitable doing it. Then the mission to the moon would have looked very, very, very different than it did. So if we say we need to circularize flows, that's a different statement than we need to circularize flows and make it profitable. You end up with different outcomes. So I don't think rebound is a failure of the circular economy. I think rebound is an inevitability of a system that demands market efficiency.
Thank you. Thanks, Trevor. So thank you very much for this very stimulating debate. I feel I've learned a lot from both of you, David and Trevor. We will, of course, publish this debate on our YouTube channel, so that we will make this available to a wider audience, unless, of course, you, Trevor and David, object to these. If you have anything in contrary to these, please just email me and we won't share this widely. And thank you very much once again to all the people who have been attending, and we will meet again soon at other initiatives that we will promote as Circular Economy Research Club. Thank you very much again for such a nice afternoon, and see you all soon. And once again, thanks to Trevor and David for this very insightful conversation. Thank you, and talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you so much.